Oh, shit. Well, end of the week, not exactly another banner couple days for me because Thursday, well, I'm doing this Thursday, it's going to be Friday, I went up in the ER again for problems, physical problems, that is. And that might preclude me not going to Cinema Wasteland this weekend because the medication they're going to put me on makes me dizzy or blurred vision. I haven't taken it yet, so I don't know. But if I take it and wake up tomorrow and I can't see and I'm dizzy, I can't drive, so it lets that out, which kind of sucks because I did want to see some people. But it is what it is. Get fucking old, shit happens. But anyway, on the Boots Foundation thing, there was about $200 left after the initial donation. And a friend of mine unfortunately lost her horse about a month ago. And we were talking, and I said, I wasn't going to use that money to give her. I was going to use my own money to give her. But she goes, no, I'd rather, make a donation to this horse rescue thing. So that's where the money went, plus all my money. So that's where that's at. Still gonna do shit, but everything has its place. And I was talking about this John Wayne thing on the last broadcast, and some of you may poo-poo it off, what's John Wayne got to do with anything you do? Well, actually, I saw a lot of his shit on 42nd Street. I saw a lot of his shit in the drive-ins, and it wasn't like the political shit, the World War II stuff or things like that. That we all, if you're my age, we grew up with that on TV. The Flying Leathernecks, Sans Iwo Jima, Back to Bataan, stuff like that. And Wayne has always been criticized for not serving, but the thing was, according to this book I just picked up, The Duke, Longhorns and Chairman Mao, which basically it's about his politics and some of the other stuff, but there's some interesting shit here that I didn't know. And okay, like I grew up with the Duke. I mean, they ran Hondo on $1 Million Movie a million times and shit. I was politically unaware at that point. But then we get into the late '60s, early '70s when your buddies are getting shipped off to Vietnam and you're classified 1A. So you sort of wonder about shit, with the whole thing, but it's a whole different ballgame. Wayne basically was a true patriot. That was the whole thing. And he embraced this country's patriotism, certain political aspects of it. But the interesting thing in here was that he was actually on a hit list put out by Joseph Stalin and Chairman Mao. Because according to Stalin, Wayne was more dangerous than the atomic bomb, in his estimation, as far as, I guess, politically, and being a film star and being able to get messages out and whatever and being able to stand for shit. So, here's an excerpt from this whole thing, and it's going to be really interesting to see who else is involved in this thing. I got to take these off because, okay. According to film historian Michael Munn's John Wayne, the Man Behind the Myth, somebody else was trailing him. British actor Peter Cushing heard stories from Chinese immigrants about Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin and Chinese chairman Mao Zedong plotting to have a big American film star killed. He told this story to Michael Munn in 1973. He's known to hate communists and he's famous for being a screen cowboy, Cushing said of the target of the assassination. The first name that comes to my mind, I say, is John Wayne. But surely that can't be true. Yet that's what these wonderful Chinese people told me, and I wonder if it was John Wayne they meant. Wayne told Munn the story. What your friend Mr. Cushing said was true. I don't know for how long. Chairman Mao wanted me out of the way, but it turned out he did, and I had an idea there was a communist conspiracy, but I kept it to myself. Never wanted my family living in fear for anything untoward would happen, but thanks to Yakuma Canut and some of the best cowboys and men from the government, I was okay on American soil. So yeah, there was a whole, plot to take out the Duke with the communists here. And it seems to have manifested itself a couple times where KGB agents posed as FBI agents, but Wayne had been tipped off already and had the FBI waiting for him to lock him up. And there was a bunch of American, whatever the fuck they were, agents or whatever that were working for Russia. And they had a meeting one night, but Yakuma Canutt and his buddies found out about it and interrupted the meeting by beating the shit out of them and putting them back on a plane and sending them to Russia. So, to me, that shit's really interesting because I never knew anything like that, and the whole thing with, I think what Wayne had said in there was that his studio would not let him out of his contract even though he wanted to serve. And the U.S. government didn't want him to serve because they wanted him on screen as the symbol of American might and soldiers and fortitude and the fighting men. And, you get the whole thing. Everything was really patriotic and crazy during, the 40s with the films like that. Like, the stuff they did, Sans Iwo Jima, Back to Bataan, things like that. And even other films like, a whole bunch of stuff. But that was the whole thing back then. So, and like Wayne was rabidly anti-communist. He admitted it. The whole thing was it sort of bled over into the Vietnam era, which was my era. And, like I said, never tried not to go, really didn't want to go, just let the chips fall where they may. And, I never went. But that's me. Other people did. And Wayne, sort of resented the attitude of the hippies and the peaceniks toward these soldiers. And Wayne actually went over there on a tour, toward the bases and stuff like that. And there's where something else in the book comes in, where a long-range sniper did try to take him out, and they did get the sniper, and he was imported from China to do the job because it came out that Wayne was touring in Vietnam. So, interesting stuff. And, the guy was a patriot. You got to give him that. I mean, it doesn't mean too much today with all the bullshit going on, but he was, USA, apple pie, motherhood, and all that other good shit that was, big back then. Too bad we shit all over it. But, I have the deepest respect for anybody who served their country, this country. So, then he actually made a movie, The Green Berets, as a tribute, the homage to the Green Berets. Of course, it was commercialized and all that. But the interesting thing was he wanted Bruce Dern, but I guess Bruce was doing something else. So they reached out to Luke Askew, who was a definite peacenik, hippie and all that. And Luke really didn't want to do it, so he threw a big figure out, which they met. So he came out, he goes, I go on the set, and there's this, big bald guy in, camo sitting there, and it was John Wayne, and I introduced myself, and we talked. And he sort of came away with a different viewpoint on the Duke. So, whatever. But it is what it is. Politics are fucked up. We all know that. I know you hate me talking about it, and I hate to bring it up, but we're sort of slammed with this shit lately. But, a lot of stuff, he was doing, and he had his detractors, especially in Hollywood. Hollywood was, I guess screamingly liberal back in the 60s and 70s. And, certain people that worked with him sort of got blackballed. Like Chris Mitchum did 3 films with him. Chisholm, Big Jake, and Rio Lobo, and after that, John Duke was trying to give him some work. He went overseas to do something, came back and auditioned for something, and they go, "Oh, you're that Chris Mitchum." He didn't know he was blackballed because of his association with John Wayne. So kind of stupid, because John Wayne had a great, like these guys build an entourage of certain actors they always work with. And, Wayne had his crew, Greg Palmer, Bruce Cabot, Paul Fix, Lee Marvin 3 times, Lee Van Cleef he had twice. So he had guys that were always with him. Same with Clint Eastwood when he did his stuff. But, Lee Marvin was a veteran. He didn't have a problem with that. But, let's face it, some of his stuff was very entertaining. Some of it was very good acting. I mean, a parallel the other night was I decided to watch The War Wagon, and I'm like, okay, you thought this sucked when it was in the theaters. What made you think it would be good 30 fucking years later? It wasn't. But then I watched The Cowboys, which I never saw before, and I'm like, this was a really good fucking movie. It was a long road show type thing. Bruce Dern is the heavy, Slim Pickens in there, and, these young kids that, were cowboys. And Roscoe Lee Brown is the cook. It was a really good movie. I mean, he's done some really good movies, and he's done some really shitty ones like The War Wagon, and, when he veers into comedy, and then the Dirty Harry knockoffs like McHugh and Brannigan. But, hey, it is what it is. You either love him or hate him. I had a sort of little animosity toward him in the 70s, but I watched this stuff. I saw his shit at the drive-in. I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I like some of his stuff, and some of his stuff I don't like. It's like any other actor. And, you know, my whole thing was, too, he surrounded himself with some really decent character actors, and that's my thing. So, all right, let me wrap it up. Hopefully my problem will clear up, and I'll get to go out this weekend and see people. If it doesn't, I'm sorry. You know, it sucks, but I don't know. I've been having this really run of bad luck since the beginning of the year, and I don't really want to dwell on it. But, again, 42ndstreetpete.com for the Boots Foundation and the channel, and 42ndstreetpete.net for merchandise. And don't forget our buddies, thefuseboxshow.com, grindhousereleasing.com, alternativecinema.com, somethingweirdvideo.com, shockcinema.com, mitchoconnell.com, dangerousginger.com, and any .com I fucking forgot about. So on that happy note, have a great weekend, and we'll catch you Monday.